On our newscast tonight, North Korea is reportedly planning to send an envoy on a European trip to try and expand its diplomatic circle. Hollywood celebrities have very personal photos exposed and circulated online as their Apple iCloud accounts are hacked. It's raising concerns that others may be next. Google plans to open a center in Seoul to nurture startup businesses and help them reach a global audience. We speak to an expert about what we can expect. Stay with us for these stories and much more.
It's 6 in the evening on Tuesday, September 2nd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Laah Hyun-kyung.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us for early edition at 6. Well, diplomatic sources say North Korea will send an envoy to Europe later this week.
And that trip coincides with a visit by North Korean Foreign Minister to New York later in the month, raising speculation that Pyongyang is speeding up efforts to re-engage with the international community.
Hopefully that is true. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
A possible trip to Europe by a seasoned North Korean diplomat is drawing further attention to Pyongyang's recent diplomatic overture. Kang Sok-ju, secretary of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, will reportedly visit Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and Italy starting late this week. Given his status in North Korea, Kang's trip may serve a specific purpose.
Kang Sok-ju is the point man when it comes to North Korea's nuclear weapons program. For the past 25 years, Kang Sok-ju's presence in Europe can be also understood as North Korea expanding its diplomatic effort to make progress with regard to its nuclear stance and missile programs with European countries and potentially with the United States.
Unconfirmed reports say senior U.S. officials visited North Korea last month on a military aircraft. North Korean Foreign Minister Lee Soo-yong will be in New York City for the UN General Assembly that begins on September 24th. Speculation is ripe Pyongyang and Washington may revive their dormant communication channels, and Europe has been the site of secret meetings between the two countries in the past. Kang may also lead high-level talks with Japan during his stay in Switzerland. His visit coincides with a seminar on the Japanese abduction issue slated for September 10th in Geneva, which senior Japanese officials are expected to attend. As Pyongyang takes strides to re-engage with Washington and Tokyo, some say Seoul could ultimately be the one left out of the diplomatic circle. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And in another apparent sign that Pyongyang wants to open up lines of communication with Washington, the regime allowed 3 American detainees in North Korea to speak to CNN. Watchers say the North is using the media to bring Washington to the negotiating table. Choi Yoo-sun has more.
In an exclusive interview with CNN, the 3 American detainees said they were being treated humanely, but that they hoped Washington would soon help them return home. Kenneth Bae, serving a 15-year sentence for alleged hostile acts to overthrow the North Korean government, said he was doing hard labor 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. His diabetes, high blood pressure, and kidney stones have worsened, having gone back and forth between the hospital and the labor camp for the past 18 months. Asking the U.S. government to send an envoy to win their release, Bae said his only hope is returning home and seeing his family again. Matthew Todd Miller, awaiting trial after he ripped up his tourist visa and sought asylum in the North, said Washington, which often promotes its priority of protecting U.S. citizens, wasn't doing enough to help him. Jeffrey Edward Fowle, soon to stand trial after leaving a Bible at his hotel in the communist state, urged CNN to let the world know more about his predicament. Having no diplomatic relations with North Korea, the U.S. government's only contact with the men is through the Swedish embassy in Pyongyang. Stressing there is no greater priority than the welfare and safety of Americans abroad, the State Department urged Pyongyang to grant Kenneth Bae amnesty in light of his poor health. North Korea's strategic use of the media to seek dialogue with the U.S. is increasing pressure on the Obama administration ahead of the midterm elections in November. Now the question is whether Washington will send a former president or a prominent political figure as it has in the past to broker the detainees' release, and if that could lead to a resumption of dialogue between the U.S. and the North. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus to the subject of ongoing military conflict between Ukraine and Russia, NATO is taking measures to ensure that a similar situation does not occur in other parts of the region. The military alliance has announced plans to launch a rapid response force of thousands of troops. Our Connie Kim has the details.
NATO's plan to form a spearhead force of thousands of troops to protect its 28 member nations is widely expected to be approved during the NATO summit in Wales on Thursday. Although the ultimate size of the rapid response force has not been decided, senior officials at NATO say it will consist of an estimated 4,000 troops that could be deployed to an alliance state within 48 hours. It's designed to stave off a future crisis like the one unfolding in eastern Ukraine, where government forces are engaged with pro-Russian rebels. NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen said the task force would be trained to counter attacks by unidentified armed assailants, tactics NATO says pro-Russian separatists are employing against Ukrainian troops. It's a type of action that Ukraine and Baltic state members have been calling for since Russia annexed Crimea in March. There were questions about what type of measures NATO could take, considering the 1997 NATO-Russia Founding Act prohibits NATO from stationing soldiers in Eastern and Central Europe permanently. NATO officials say it'll rotate its combat forces in the Baltic states, which would not violate the treaty. NATO's move aims to stop a repeat of Russia's incursion in Ukraine, which President Petro Poroshenko has said is headed toward a great war of the likes Europe has yet to see. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And now on to the latest internet security threat. Intimate photos of an estimated 100 celebrities, mostly female, have been leaked online, raising major concerns. I mean, the social network platform has made our lives more convenient, but there's also that downside.
Right, more vulnerable and exposed. The FBI is addressing the matter, and Apple's iCloud storage service is under suspicion for being the hacked network, says it is also investigating. Our Yudian has the details on this report.
Nude photos of Oscar-winning actress Jennifer Lawrence and pop star Rihanna were among the private photos of celebrities that turned up on the website 4chan. A spokesperson for Lawrence confirmed the authenticity of the images and slammed the hackers for a flagrant violence of privacy and vowed to prosecute anyone who shared the images online. Actress Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who also had her intimate photos leaked, criticized the people who posted and viewed her photos and said they were taken in privacy of her and her husband's home. The anonymous user who leaked the photos claimed they were obtained from Apple's iCloud accounts, sparking fears about the safety and security of the service. When activated, the iCloud service automatically uploads photos, emails, and contacts on your smartphone to multiple electronic devices, including tablet PCs and laptops. Apple released a brief statement on Monday saying it takes user privacy seriously and is currently actively investigating the report. If the hackers are caught, they could serve some major jail time. Christopher Cheney, who was found to have leaked nude photos of celebrities like Scarlett Johansson, was sentenced to 10 years behind bars. Yurian, Arirang News.
The Korean government hasn't been practicing what it preached about providing more support for startups and smaller businesses. Too much dependence on the nation's conglomerates and a lack of sustainable support for such businesses have always been pointed out as the main problems of the Korean economic structure.
That's right. But recently, Google unveiled a plan to open up a new space for entrepreneurs in Seoul called Campus Seoul, and the news has gotten many excited about future possibilities.
That's right. Joining us today for a closer look at this topic is the CEO and co-founder of Korea-based startup Flito, Mr. Simon Lee.
All right, thank you very much for being here today.
Okay, thank you.
So for our viewers who are not familiar with your application or your service yet, do tell us about the service.
Okay, Fleeto is a crowdsourced translation platform. You know, the translation market is growing really fast. It's valued at $40 billion US. And this market is divided into two. One is auto translation market, the other one is professional translation market. So ours is like more like crowdsourced translation market. You know, there's like tons of people out there who speak more than a language, just like you guys. So we bring them into our platform to participate in the translation. For example, this is my application, so I can record my voice here. 안녕하세요, 아리랑 TV 시청자 여러분. 세계에서 가장 빠르고 가장 정확한 번역 서비스 플리토입니다.
Oh, then that translates all that.
Right, and then I request this to those people who speak both Korean and English.
And they're standing by?
Well, there are like 3.5 million users around 170 different countries who are using our application. They can participate in the translation and get compensation.
Oh, okay.
And there, I got the translation. So it goes like,
Hi, the audience is of Arirang TV. This is Fleeto, which is the fastest and the most accurate translation platform in the world.
Indeed.
this is how it works.
It's quite a big threat to freelance translators and interpreters out there. Well, anyway, Fleeto was actually the first Korean company to make it into Google's campus London. So could you maybe tell us a little bit more about the experience and how was it possible for you to become the first there?
So there's like two reasons why we chose Campus London to start our business. The first one is like we're dealing with the language translation service. So we just wanted to meet a lot of users who speak different languages, and we thought Campus London is the perfect place for us to be. And Campus London is set by Google, so we thought something might be different if Google set up a campus. And you know, honestly, it was very rewarding for us. We could meet a lot of different people around the world, and they helped us with our service. They gave us a lot of feedbacks, and also, you know, there were a lot of mentors and IT specialists. Also, they gave us a lot of feedbacks, so we could start our business very safely in London. You know, it's more like a soft landing.
So you were able to perhaps practice and start your business in trying to start up in Seoul as well as your experience with London. So would you say Korea has the potential to nurture such innovative startup companies?
Right. Well, startups in Google campuses are like potential partners and customers of Google, which explains why Google makes such a huge investment on its campus. And in that sense, we can say that setting up a campus shows that the market and the entrepreneurs in that region matter to Google. As the first campus in Asia, the Seoul campus shows the innovativeness and potential of Korean startups. You know, that's what I can say.
Well, you're a mastermind of a brilliant startup yourself.
Thank you
Perhaps
very much.
you could share your wisdom and expertise about the expectations people have of Campus Seoul, and based on your experience with Campus London, what kind of upgrades or changes they could make here?
Right, so starting your own business is not as romantic as you think, you know. It feels like you're standing in the middle of Alaska tundra. It's very cold and very lonely. But if there's like some people around you, you know, you can feel the warmth. And you know, you got to find the Greenland. And there's like no one actually guide you. But if you stay in campus Google, you know, there's like you can find those people who already been to a Greenland. So they teach you how to get to a Greenland. So what I wish is like Campus Seoul will also, you know, help those Korean entrepreneurs to find the Greenland. And Google, you know, is Google, right? It has huge network around the world. So I wish Google to help Korean entrepreneurs to find their potential partners around the world using their network.
You think Korean successful models, Korean CEOs would be a better mentor, or perhaps a more international one would be more appropriate for the Korean startups?
I'm wishing both of them. You know, there's like tons of Korean mentors who's very successful already. So I'm pretty much sure they're going to come to Google Seoul, like Campus Seoul, to guide them to Greenland. You know, I'm keep on saying Greenland. And also, you know, there's like they have huge network around the world, and I'm pretty much sure they're going to
share it with the rest of the world.
Right. I mean, always the key is to make them sustainable, the startups, and we are looking forward to your input in growing and, you know, fostering the future startups of Korea. Thank you very much, Mr. Simon Lee, for coming into the studio today.
Thank you very much.
Face a one-day entry ban. 77.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Laah Hyun-kyung and Daniel Choy.
Arirang News.
Arirang News. On Early Edition at 6.
Now, for some here in Korea, April's ferry sinking is still fresh in their minds, making them hesitate to travel by sea. Naturally, the government is working to tackle that issue by introducing measures that would make ferry travel safer. The Maritime Ministry laid out its plans today. They include making some 30 ferry operators currently experiencing financial difficulties public.
The introduction of the public system, which could include running publicly operated ships, is being reviewed in a bid to take care of safety on a national level.
Now, some of the other measures proposed by the ministry include banning the remodeling of a ship in any way that could pose a safety risk. They are also considering putting a limit on the maximum age of passenger ferries to 20 years, which applies to about 30% of the more than 200 ferries currently in operation. The government and the ruling Saenuri Party have tentatively agreed to increase next year's budget by 5%. That would put the budget at around $370 billion. That's lower than the 6% increase the government ministries and agencies had requested, and much lower than the 10% spike analysts had been expecting when the new economic team rolled out its stimulus measures in July. Welfare programs stand to see the biggest budget increase, with more than 30% of the total budget allocated for them for the first time. Now, the government and the ruling party plans on finalizing the budget by the end of next month before putting it up for parliamentary approval. The rapidly changing e-banking environment, along with the sector's efforts to maximize profitability, have prompted banks around the nation to cut down the number of their branches. Some 270 have gone within the past year. Our Song Ji-sun has this story.
1 out of every 20 bank branches have closed down over the past year. As of the end of July, the total number of bank branches in Korea stood at just over 5,100, down 5% from a year earlier. That's the biggest decrease in 17 years. The 1997 Asian financial crisis that folded 5 small-sized banks and shuttered nearly 8,000 branches triggered a chain of mergers among Korean banks. The move was followed by major restructuring that closed down more branches, and internet banking and automation have further reduced their number.
Only 11% of all money transfers were made through counters at the bank branches, with the rest handled through computers, smartphones, ATMs, or telephones.
Leading the trend are people in their 20s and 30s, many of whom say they only visit the bank when they need help with online banking.
I go to banks once every 3 months or so, only to get a new authentication card, but I use mobile banking almost every day. There's no need to carry much cash around these days, and I can do money transfers instantly on my smartphone.
Such changes led to a reduction in workforce in the industry. Major banks in Korea such as KB, Shinhan, Hana, Korea Exchange, Standard Chartered, and Citibank reduced their workforce by an average of 3% last year. The umbrella group of banking labor unions has called for a one-day strike on Wednesday by bank employees to back their demand of ensuring employment. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories, Korea's consumer prices grew at the slowest pace in 4 months in August. Statistics Korea says the index rose 1.4% last month from a year ago, slowing from July's 1.6% gain. The agency attributed the slumping numbers to a slowdown in the price increase of farm produce and energy product prices. The price of agricultural products tumbled almost 5% last month from a year earlier. The Finance Ministry expects the nation's inflation rate to remain steady unless bad weather conditions cause major disruptions to the prices of farming goods. The world's first solar plant constructed over water has started operations here in Korea. The local developers say similar plants like this one could one day make waves in the global energy market. Our Son Jung-in takes us to the plant.
This is the world's first rotating solar power plant on water. Unlike other conventional solar facilities or fixed on land, this module is designed to move along with the movement of the sun during the day, which increases energy efficiency by 22%. The floating plant in Anseong, Gyeonggi-do Province consists of 1,600 panels that can produce 2,000 kilowatts of energy per day, which is enough to supply about 200 households. The concept of movable solar panels is not new, but other versions consume a great amount of energy to rotate. This one does not.
Using water buoyancy, 2 motor engines are enough to operate an 8,000 square meter generator that follows the sun's movement to maximize efficiency.
The installation can withstand winds of 50 meters per second and can adjust its level depending on water level changes. Water fountains around the module are designed to lower the temperature of the water to prevent outbreaks of algae, while also providing a beautiful lighting attraction at night. Researchers estimate that if rotating floating power plants are set up in a quarter of the total surface of reservoirs nationwide, it would generate over 5,000 kilowatts per hour, providing a possible breakthrough in the country's power shortage. 손정인, Arirang News.
The concept of the so-called sharing economy has been around for quite some time now around the world. Although a late starter, Korea's peer-to-peer marketplace is also growing quickly. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports on what the sharing economy looks like here in Korea.
Green Car is a car-sharing service founded in 2011 that makes it easier for people to lend out cars at low prices. It's one of the most prominent examples of the sharing economy in Korea, in which people become more like users than owners of assets. Around 240,000 people have used this service so far. All it takes is a few taps on a smartphone application.
It's really easy to use this car sharing service. It's only $3 for using this Avante model for 30 minutes.
Users are instantly updated on what kind of vehicles are available in one of the so-called green zones, locations where people can pick up and drop off their vehicles after they're done using them. There are 700 green zones throughout the country, and so it takes just 10 minutes by foot on average to reach one. Green Car Marketing and Communications Director Yang Sung-hee says that technological developments have allowed the convergence of the appropriate hardware and software, providing the best platform for the car-sharing service.
The technological advances make it easier for us to operate as platform providers for vehicles. GPS allows us to track where the vehicles are and who's using them, and through the smartphone application, users can easily lock and unlock the cars they wish to use.
Companies like Green Car are using their sharing economy to find ways to utilize idle assets and providing a platform to make them more resourceful. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center for the forecast.
Michelle, it was a drizzling on and off in Seoul, so are we in for more rain tonight?
Yes, we are. In fact, rain is already falling outside our studios, while Jeju Island and the southern regions are seeing heavy rain right now. And through tomorrow, they'll get between 30 and 50 millimeters per hour.
So, Michelle, how long is this round of rain going to last?
It will continue until Thursday nationwide. Up to 120 millimeters are expected in the central region, while Jeju and the southern regions will see up to 100. Now, it will continue. As for why we're getting all this rain, we are right in the middle of the area where cold air meets a high pressure front coming from the North Pacific, and that's creating the storm clouds. And along with this rain, we can expect cooler days ahead with highs ranging in the low 20s to the mid 20s. However, the weather will clear up over our Chuseok holiday weekend, so hang in there. Now going over to our tomorrow's readings. Seoul will top out the Wednesday morning at 19 before reaching up to 22 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will be tad warmer at 25 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island peaks to 28, while Dokdo and Mangkungang remains in the low 20s. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that's all we have for you at this hour. If you're tuning in from different time zones, have a wonderful day. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. To those in Korea, have a great rest of the evening. Daniel and I will be back same time tomorrow.